Welcome back to Scary Central. If you enjoy slow, true-style horror stories that feel uncomfortably real, you might want to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It helps the channel grow, and it means a lot. This is something I've never really told anyone before. I moved to Red Hollow because I needed somewhere cheap, quiet, and far away from everything that had just fallen apart in my life. My divorce had finalized 3 months earlier. The apartment I'd shared with my ex suddenly felt too big and too empty. My job at the print shop had cut my hours. I was behind on rent. I wasn't in danger of being homeless yet, but I could see it coming if I didn't change something fast. Red Hollow was a dot on the map about 40 miles outside of Amarillo. Mostly farmland, cracked highways, long fences that went on forever. A place people passed through without stopping. The rent on a small one-bedroom duplex, there was less than half of what I'd been paying in the city. The landlord didn't ask many questions. I signed the lease over the phone and moved in 2 weeks later with everything I could fit into my car. The place itself wasn't bad. Old, sure. Faded yellow paint, creaky floors, a swamp cooler that rattled like it was dying. But it was quite too quiet, sometimes. My neighbor lived in the other half of the duplex. His name was Leonard. He looked like he was in his late 50s or early 60s. Grey hair combed straight back, thick glasses, always wearing the same brown work jacket no matter how hot it got. The first time I saw him, he was standing in his driveway, staring at my car as I unloaded boxes. "Morning," he said. His voice was flat, polite, but heavy, like every word took effort. "Morning," I replied. He watched me for a few seconds longer than felt normal. "You here long term?" he asked. "Yeah, just moved in." He nodded once. "Quiet town. Folks like it that way." Then he went back inside without another word. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Small town people are often awkward with strangers. I figured he'd warm up eventually. My days settled into a routine fast. I got a job at a feed supply store just outside town. I worked mornings, came home in the afternoons, microwaved something cheap, and spent the rest of the evening reading or scrolling on my phone. Red Hollow had one gas station, one diner, a tiny grocery store, and not much else. Everyone seemed to know everyone. People nodded when they passed me. A few introduced themselves. Most didn't. Leonard kept to himself. I almost never saw him leave. His truck sat in the driveway most days. Sometimes his lights were on late at night. Sometimes they weren't. Every once in a while, I'd catch him standing in his window, just watching the street. Looking back now, that's when the uneasiness started, not fear. Just a faint sense that something was off. About a month in, I noticed the smell. It was faint at first, something sour in the air, especially in the evenings when it got warm. I assumed it was a dead animal somewhere nearby. It's not uncommon out there. Coyotes, raccoons, stray dogs. The smell seemed strongest near Leonard's side of the duplex. I told myself it wasn't my business. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to a noise. It sounded like something heavy being dragged across concrete. I lay still in bed, listening. There was a pause. Then a soft thump. Then another dragging sound. My heart started to beat faster. The sound was coming from outside, near the driveway. I got up slowly and peered through my blinds. Leonard was outside, wearing his jacket, dragging a large black trash bag toward his truck. He stopped halfway, leaned down, and adjusted his grip. The bag looked heavy. He loaded it into the truck bed, then stood there for a moment, breathing hard. I remember noticing his hands shaking slightly. He looked up, straight at my window. I froze. Our eyes met for maybe 2 seconds. Then he turned away, got into his truck, and drove off. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I told myself he was just throwing out junk. People clean out garages at weird hours sometimes. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something about it didn't sit right with me. The next morning, there were dark stains on the concrete where he'd been dragging the bag. I told myself it was oil. Weeks passed. The smell got worse. Sometimes I heard noises at night. Soft, rhythmic sounds, like muffled crying. But every time I worked up the nerve to listen closely, it stopped. One afternoon at work, I overheard two customers talking quietly near the counter. Another one of them said. Third this year, the other replied. Sheriff says it's probably runaways. I asked them what they were talking about. They exchanged a look. Girl from the trailer park didn't come home, one said. 16, maybe 17. Family's been calling around. My stomach tightened. Do things like that happen a lot here? I asked. They shrugged. People drift through. Hard to say. That night, the crying came back. It was faint, almost like it was coming from underground. I sat on my couch, lights off, heart pounding, listening. The sound lasted for maybe 10 minutes. Then it stopped abruptly. The silence afterward felt heavy, thick. I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I walked past Leonard's side of the duplex on my way to work. His window curtains were slightly open. Inside, I saw something on the floor near the back door. A child's shoe. Pink. Small. I stopped walking. My breath caught in my throat. Then Leonard's face appeared in the window. He stared at me. I stared back. Neither of us moved for what felt like forever. Then he slowly reached up and pulled the curtain shut. I went to work in a daze. I kept replaying the image of that shoe in my head, telling myself there had to be a normal explanation. Grandkid visiting. Someone left it behind. But the feeling in my chest wouldn't go away. That evening, there were police cars on our street. 2 of them. They knocked on Leonard's door. He answered. They talked for a long time. One of the officers wrote something down on a clipboard. I stood in my doorway, pretending to check my mail. Leonard didn't look surprised to see them. He looked tired, resigned. After they left, he sat on his porch steps with his head in his hands. I almost went over to ask if he was okay. I didn't. The crying stopped after that. The smell got worse. A week later, the feed store owner told me they'd found a body in a ditch a few miles outside town. Teenage girl, identified as the one from the trailer park. The sheriff said it looked like she'd been dead for weeks. Something about that didn't sit right with me. That night, I heard the dragging sound again. This time, I didn't just watch. I grabbed my phone and started recording through the blinds. Leonard dragged 2 black bags to his truck. One of them tore open slightly. Something pale slid out for a second before he shoved it back in and taped the bag shut. I started shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. He looked up again, straight at my window. He smiled. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, I went to the sheriff's office. I told them everything. The crying, The smells, the bags, the shoe, the recording. They took my statement seriously. More seriously than I expected. 2 days later, they searched Leonard's place. They found a trapdoor under his bed. Beneath it, a concrete-lined pit. 3 girls were down there. 2 alive. 1 dead. They'd been reported missing from nearby towns over the last year. Leonard had been driving out at night, picking them up off highways, promising rides, offering food. He kept them alive just long enough to use them. Then he disposed of them like trash. The sheriff told me later that they'd suspected him once before, years ago, when another girl vanished. But they didn't have enough to arrest him. The stains in the driveway weren't oil. They were blood. Leonard confessed without a lawyer. He said he'd been lonely. He said he just wanted someone to stay. I moved out 2 days later. I didn't even finish packing properly. I just left most of my stuff behind. I still think about those nights, about how close I was to ignoring everything, about how easy it would have been to tell myself it wasn't my problem. Looking back now, the worst part isn't what he did. It's how normal he seemed, how polite, how quiet. I drive past that duplex sometimes, on my way out of town. Someone else lives there now. The windows are always dark. And every time I pass it, I can't shake the feeling that something is still wrong with that place. Like the ground remembers. Like the silence is heavier there than anywhere else. And I keep thinking about how, for months, I lived right next to a man who was doing something unspeakable. And how I almost didn't notice at all.